You are in the heat of the moment. The passion is electric. You are finally ready to let go and enjoy the ride. And then before you have even unpacked your bags, he has already crossed the finish line. We have all been there. And let us be brutally honest about how this feels, because nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the bedroom. You are lying there staring at the ceiling. Your engine is still completely revved up, and he is suddenly rolling over, apologizing profusely, or worse, going completely silent and pulling away because his ego just took a massive nosedive. In my 15 years of coaching millions of women across the globe and sitting in rooms with thousands of men breaking down exactly how they think, I can tell you that this exact scenario destroys more intimacy than almost anything else. It is not because he finished the main event before you even got your shoes off, but because of the horrific, awkward confidence, crushing aftermath that follows. When a guy wraps up the festivities too early, it is like a bomb goes off in his brain. You have to understand the psychology of the male ego in the bedroom to realize why he reacts the way he does and why you are left feeling completely frustrated and cold. For a man, his performance when you are getting busy is directly tied to his deepest sense of masculinity and self-worth. Society tells men that they need to be marathon runners under the sheets, that they need to go all night, that they need to be the maestro of the mattress. From a very young age, men are conditioned by the media, by locker room talk, and by adult films to believe that their only value in an intimate setting is their ability to hammer away endlessly like a machine. So when his little guy decides the race is over after a 2-minute sprint, he is not just thinking he disappointed you, he is experiencing a profound internal crisis of his manhood. He feels like a failure, he feels like he let you down, he feels like a joke. And because men are terrible at processing shame in real time, that shame immediately morphs into awkwardness, defensiveness, or emotional distance. He might try to laugh it off with a self-deprecating joke. He might give you that pathetic puppy dog look and say he is sorry 100 times. Or he might just physically retreat, turning his back to you because he cannot bear to look you in the eyes while he feels like less of a man. But while he is throwing an internal pity party, where does that leave you? You are lying there with all this built up energy, your body is humming, your desire is peaked, and you are left completely stranded at the altar of your own pleasure. You want to be supportive, so you naturally fall into the trap of saying things like, is okay, really, it is fine, do not worry about it. You put on the mask of the cool girl, the understanding girlfriend, the accommodating partner, but deep down you are frustrated, you are annoyed, and if it happens repeatedly, you start to feel resentful. You start to feel like your pleasure is an afterthought, like you are just a receptacle for his quick release rather than a partner in a shared experience. Over time, this breeds a massive disconnect. You start to dread getting physical because you already know how the script ends. A quick dash to the finish line followed by a 20-minute awkward silence where you both pretend everything is fine while an ocean of unspoken disappointment sits between you. But here's the massive reframe I need you to understand right now. Him finishing too fast is not a tragedy. It is an opportunity, but only if you know exactly how to handle it in the moment and how to communicate about it outside the moment. Let us break down the exact mechanical and emotional steps you need to take to turn a 2-minute sprint into an all-night festival of pleasure without bruising his fragile ego. First, we have to talk about the immediate reaction, the crucial 10 seconds after he pops off early. This is where most women make their biggest mistake. The absolute worst thing you can do when he finishes fast is to let the energy die. When the energy dies, the shame enters. Do not freeze. Do not let out a frustrated sigh. Do not immediately pull away to go to the bathroom. And please do not give him that sweet, pitying, motherly look and tell him it is okay. Pity is the kryptonite of passion. When you tell him it is fine in that soothing maternal voice, you are confirming his deepest fear that he performed poorly, and you are just consoling him like a child who dropped his ice cream on the sidewalk. You are emasculating him with kindness. And while your intentions are pure, the psychological result is catastrophic for his future performance. Instead, you are going to use a technique I call the sexy pivot. When the main event ends abruptly, you do not let the intimacy stop. You simply change the channel the moment he crosses the finish line. Pull him close, kiss him deeply, and whisper something incredibly validating but entirely focused on your ongoing needs. Say something like, well, you were so hot you could not even hold back. I love that I do that to you. Now, it is my turn. Well, perhaps I love how much you wanted me just now, but I am still so entirely worked up. Get your hands over here. Do you see what you just did there? You took his biggest source of shame, finishing early, and you completely reframed it as a massive compliment to your attractiveness. You made him feel like an absolute rock star because he was so overwhelmed by your beauty and your body that he simply could not contain himself. You validated his desire for you. You fed his ego the exact meal it was starving for, but you did not let him off the hook for your pleasure. By saying, now, it is my turn, you are laying down a boundary wrapped in velvet. You are telling him that the carnival is not closed just because one ride broke down. You are keeping him in the game. You have to physically guide him in the pivot. Do not wait for him to figure out what to do because his brain is currently offline due to embarrassment and a massive flood of post-release hormones. Take his hands and place them exactly where you want them. Guide his mouth to where it needs to go. If you have some fun battery-operated toys in the bedside drawer, now is the exact time to bring them out. Hand him the toy. Make him part of your journey to the grand finale by keeping him physically engaged in bringing you to the peak. You are doing two incredibly important psychological things. First, you are ensuring your needs get met, preventing the buildup of resentment that destroys relationships from the inside out. Second, you are giving him a way to redeem himself instantly. If he can use his hands, his mouth, or a toy to give you an earth-shattering he gets to reclaim his title as a maestro of the bedroom. He gets his confidence back. He thinks, sure, my little guy checked out early, but I still made her scream my name and curl her toes. That is a massive win for the male ego. You have to understand that intimacy is not a single act. It is an entire landscape. We have been conditioned by movies to believe that the only act that matters is the main event, the actual doing the deed, and everything else is just the trailer before the movie. That is entirely wrong. The main event is just one ride at the theme park. If that ride closes early for maintenance, you go to the other rides. You go to the downtown exploration, you go to the manual stimulation station, you go to the toy factory. When you normalize shifting from the main event to other activities without missing a single beat, you take a monumental amount of pressure off his shoulders. And here is the beautiful psychological paradox of male performance anxiety. The reason he finishes so fast is almost always because he is trapped in his own head. He is thinking, I need to last, do not finish. Think about baseball, think about taxes, do not finish. And because he is hyper focused on not finishing, what happens? He finishes instantly. It is like telling someone not to think about a pink elephant. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy of panic. His nervous system is screaming at him, his adrenaline is pumping, and his body interprets that anxiety as a signal to hit the eject button as fast as humanly possible. But when you establish a dynamic where finishing early does not ruin the night, where it just means you seamlessly transition to other incredibly hot activities, you remove the stakes. He realizes that the world does not end if he pops off in 3 minutes. And once that terrifying pressure is gone, his body relaxes, his mind relaxes, and miraculously over time, he actually starts lasting longer because he is no longer treating the bedroom like a high-stakes bomb defusal mission where cutting the wrong wire blows up the entire relationship. He is just enjoying the connection. But what happens if this is not just a one-time fluke because he was overly excited? What if this is a chronic, deeply ingrained situation? If you are dealing with a guy who consistently hits the eject button before the flight has even taken off, you cannot just sexy pivot your way out of it every single time without eventually having a real substantive conversation. But the way you have this conversation will determine whether you upgrade your intimacy or whether he builds a fortress of defensive walls around himself that you will never penetrate. You never, ever have this conversation in the bedroom. The bedroom is a sanctuary, not a courtroom. When you bring up his performance issues while you are sitting in the very place they happen, he will feel cornered, attacked, and completely exposed. You need to take the conversation to neutral territory. Go for a walk in the park. Take a drive together. Sit on the couch on a Sunday afternoon with a glass of wine, and when you bring it up, you must use the magic of the wah framework instead of the you framework. If you say, you always finish too fast and it is leaving me completely frustrated, he will hear you are a broken, inadequate man and I am thinking about leaving you for someone who works properly. His defenses will go up. He will get angry and he will shut down. Instead, you frame it around a shared desire for a deeper, longer lasting connection. You say something like, I have been thinking about our intimate life and I love how insanely attracted we are to each other. I love that heat between us, but I really want us to explore ways to make our sessions last longer. I want us to spend more time teasing each other, more time building up the tension before we get to the main event. I want to draw out the pleasure for both of us because I just want more of you. Notice the absolute brilliance of this language. You are not pointing a finger at his rapid fire habits. You are inviting him into a collaborative project to elevate your mutual pleasure. You are suggesting that the current routine is good, but you want to upgrade it to spectacular. You are making it a team effort. Once you have opened that door in a loving, non-threatening way, you can start introducing massive mechanical changes to how you get busy. Because sometimes enthusiasm and empathy are not enough. You actually need tactical, mechanical shifts in the bedroom to physically alter his response time. One of the most powerful mechanical shifts is totally restructuring your timeline of intimacy. Most couples have a painfully predictable routine. 10 minutes of kissing, 5 minutes of him touching your sweet spot, and then right into the main event until he finishes. We need to completely disrupt that pattern and burn the old script to the ground. You need to become the director of the scene and intentionally slow the entire process down to an agonizing crawl. When things start getting hot, make a game out of delaying the ultimate gratification. Tell him, we are not allowed to go all the way for at least 30 minutes. I just want to feel your hands on me and I want to taste you. By explicitly taking the main event off the table for a set period, you are forcing him to focus entirely on your body, on foreplay, on building the tension, and most importantly, you are taking the performance anxiety away from his little guy. This means when you finally do get down to business, you are already so revved up and close to the edge that even if he only lasts a few minutes, it will be more than enough to push you over the finish line right alongside him. You have to train his brain to realize that the appetizer is actually the main course and the main event is just the dessert. You also need to master the art of the stop and go method without making it feel clinical or like a doctor's appointment. If you are in the middle of the ride and you can feel his breathing change, you can feel his pace quickening, his muscles tensing up, and you know he is about to hit the point of no return. Do not just lie there and let it happen if you are not ready. Take control of the physical space. Pull back, change position. Say something breathy and dominant like, wait, let me look at you for a second, or lie back. I want to tease you right now. You are hitting the pause button on his physical stimulation, giving his hyper-aroused nervous system a chance to reset and cool down for 30 seconds. But you are doing it in a way that feels incredibly powerful and sexy rather than saying, whoa, slow down, you are going to finish. It is all about the packaging. You are wrapping a necessary speed bump in highly seductive paper. This is where your own sexual confidence has to take the steering wheel and drive the car. A lot of women sit in the passenger seat of their own pleasure, expecting the guy to automatically know the route, the speed limit, and the final destination. But guys are not mind readers, and when they are highly stimulated, their EQ drops by about 50 points. They get massive tunnel vision. They find a rhythm that feels amazing for their little guy, and they just hammer away at it until the fireworks go off, completely oblivious to the fact that you might need a different angle, a different speed, or way more attention on your magic button. You have to speak up in the moment. Use your voice, use your body weight. If he is going too fast, literally push your hips back to physically stop his rhythm. Guide his hands with your hands. Whisper exactly what you want in his ear. Slower. Right there. Do not move. Grind against me. Men crave absolute direction in the bedroom as long as it does not sound like a harsh critique. When you tell a man exactly how to please you in a sultry, demanding, confident voice, it does not hurt his ego, it inflames it. He wants to be your hero. He just needs you to hand him the map so he stops driving blindly into the woods. And let us talk about the concept of round two, because this is the ultimate secret weapon for couples dealing with a quick trigger situation. If his biology is just wired to finish the first round in record time because he is so insanely turned on by you, stop fighting it. Stop going to war with his nervous system. Let the first round be exactly what it is, a wild, passionate, messy sprint that gets his initial overwhelming urge out of his system. Let him have that uninhibited release without any judgment. But establish the absolute non-negotiable rule that round one is just the warm-up act. After he finishes, you do the sexy pivot, you keep the energy flowing with hands and mouths, you get yours, and you stay intimately tangled in the sheets. You keep kissing his chest. You keep touching his thighs. You do not put your clothes back on. You do not pick up your phones. You do not turn on the television. You stay entirely within that energetic bubble of intimacy. Because once that initial pressure is released, a man's refractory period, the time it takes for him to pitch a tent again and get back to business, can be surprisingly short if the emotional and physical heat is maintained. And when round two begins, it is a completely different ballgame. The desperation is gone. The hypersensitivity is dulled. His body is significantly more relaxed. Round two is where the marathon happens. Round two is where he can go for 20, 30, 40 minutes without feeling that uncontrollable surge to finish. By accepting the fast first round and building a rock, solid culture of round two, you completely eliminate the anxiety. You both know the real magic happens after the first intermission. You might think we have covered the entire playbook, but we are only just getting started because the real secret to extending his runway happens long before you even step foot in the bedroom. What we talked about so far is the triage, exactly what to do when the car breaks down on the side of the highway. But now we need to talk about preventative maintenance, the psychology of anticipation, and how you can completely rewire his nervous system so he does not redline the engine the second things get hot. You see, the reason so many guys are 2-minute noodles is because they do not know how to exist in a state of high arousal without immediately seeking the finish line. Their brains are wired for a quick hit of dopamine, a fast release, and then it is game over. To fix this, you have to train his brain to sit in the fire of desire without rushing to put it out. This starts with how you communicate with him throughout the day. I am talking about mastering the art of the slow burn through text game. If you only ever get spicy with him right before the clothes come off, his brain associates that spice with immediate physical action. He goes from 0 to 110 seconds, and his body just cannot handle the G-force of that transition. But if you start dropping little breadcrumbs of heat hours before you see him, you are doing something I call psychological edging. You shoot him a text at 2 in the afternoon that says, I cannot stop thinking about what I am going to make you do to me later, but you are going to have to beg for it. Boom. You just planted a massive seed in his mind. He is going to be thinking about that text all through his afternoon meetings. He is going to be sitting in that state of heightened arousal for hours. By the time he actually gets home, his brain has already processed the initial shockwave of excitement. You have normalized the heat. You are teaching his nervous system that it is okay to be turned on for a long period of time without needing an instant physical release. This is how you stretch out the rubber band so it does not snap the second you touch him. When you finally get together, you have to maintain this slow, agonizingly hot pace. This is where your physical boundaries become your absolute superpower. When a guy is prone to popping off early, he usually rushes the foreplay because he is so desperate to get to the main event. He wants to dive straight into the deep end because the shallow end makes him too anxious. You cannot let him do that. You have to be the ultimate gatekeeper of the rhythm. When he tries to rush, you literally push his chest back, look him dead in the eyes and say, we are not rushing tonight. You belong to me right now, and we are going entirely at my pace. That level of dominance absolutely melts the male brain. It takes all the pressure off his performance because you are the one driving the car. You are taking the steering wheel out of his sweaty, anxious hands. And from a strictly mechanical standpoint, you need to deeply understand the physiology of why he finishes too fast. When a man is getting close to the edge, his entire body clenches, his jaw tightens, his shoulders creep up to his ears, his glutes squeeze, his fists clench, and most importantly, he completely stops breathing. He holds his breath, which sends a massive signal to his sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight center of his brain, that it is time to sprint to the finish line and evacuate. If you want to make him last longer, you have to hack his nervous system by forcing him to relax his physical body. When you are rolling around and you feel him start to get tense, when you hear his breathing get shallow and choppy, you have to intervene immediately. Do not just let him aggressively hammer away while holding his breath. Stop his movement. Put your hands flat on his chest and say, breathe with me. Sync your breathing with his. Take deep, slow breaths into your belly and make him match your exact pace. Run your hands over his shoulders and physically push them down to relax his muscles. Whisper to him, relax your body, just feel me. Slow down breathe by forcing him to take deep, oxygen-rich breaths and unclench his muscles. You are literally pulling him back from the physiological point of no return. You are teaching his body how to surf the massive wave of pleasure instead of just crashing aggressively onto the beach. This brings us to the actual mechanics of the main event and how you use positioning to your absolute advantage. If he is a quick trigger, the absolute worst thing you can do is let him take the top spot in the missionary position from the very beginning. When he is on top, he is in complete physical control of the friction, the depth and the speed, and because gravity is working with him, it is the most highly stimulating and demanding position for his little guy. He will find that sweet spot and he will run a sprint until he drops. You need to flip the script entirely. You take the top spot. When you are riding high, you control exactly how much stimulation he gets. You can take it incredibly slow. You can grind in circles instead of bouncing up and down. You can sit all the way up so it completely changes the angle and reduces the intense friction on his most sensitive areas. And most importantly, when you are on top, you can stop completely whenever you want without asking for permission. If you feel him getting too close, you literally just stop moving, lean down, kiss his neck. Trace your fingers over his chest and let him simmer for 30 seconds while he regains control. You play him like an instrument. You are teaching him stamina without him even realizing he is enrolled in a masterclass. And let us get real about using external help, because there is absolutely zero shame in bringing in reinforcements. If his hardware is just naturally hypersensitive from a biological standpoint, you can introduce things that dull the sensation just enough to keep him in the game much longer. There are desensitizing wipes and serums on the market that work absolute miracles, but you have to introduce them the right way or you will destroy him. If you toss him a numbing wipe with a look of disappointment and say, you need to use this because you keep finishing too fast and I am bored, you are going to crush his ego into dust. He will feel broken and defective. Instead, you introduce it playfully and selfishly. You buy a premium high quality delay serum, you bring it into the bedroom and you say, I got this new toy for us to try. I am going to rub this all over you so I can ride you all night long and completely drain you. You make it sound like a selfish, ravenous desire for your own pleasure, which completely neutralizes his performance anxiety. You turn a medical solution into a highly erotic game. He thinks, wow, She is so insatiable, she needs clinical enhancements just to keep me going because she wants me so badly. It is a massive ego stroke disguised flawlessly as a tactical delay strategy. But beyond the mechanics, beyond the breathing, and beyond the toys, there is a fundamental emotional dynamic that you have to master if you want to permanently fix this issue and build an unshakable relationship. You have to build a bedroom culture of zero judgment combined with incredibly high standards. Most women swing to one of two massive extremes when dealing with a guy who finishes fast. Either they become overly critical and resentful, making passive-aggressive comments that destroy his confidence and make him dread intimacy, or they become completely self-sacrificing, pretending they are totally fine with a 2-minute session and faking their own grand finale just to protect his delicate feelings. Both of these extremes are entirely toxic and will slowly poison your intimacy until there is nothing left but resentment. Faking your pleasure is the absolute worst thing you can possibly do because you are rewarding the exact behavior you want to change. You are giving him a standing ovation for a terrible rush performance. So why would his brain ever try to improve? You have to exist in the powerful, magnetic middle ground of high warmth and high standards. High warmth means you never shame him. You never roll your eyes. You never sigh heavily. You never make him feel like less of a man for popping off early. You stroke his hair. You kiss him passionately. You tell him exactly how sexy he is, and you let him know that his quick release is a massive compliment to your undeniable hotness. But high standards mean you do not let the music stop until you've actually danced. High standards mean after you give him that immense warmth and validation, you smoothly transition right into your own pleasure. You hand him the magic wand, you guide his face downtown, and you absolutely expect him to put in the manual labor to get you over the mountain. When you consistently enforce this physical boundary, you create a brilliant psychological shift in his brain. He stops viewing his early finish as a massive world-ending failure because he knows the session does not end there. He knows he still has a critically important job to do, and he knows exactly how to do it because you are giving him clear, sexy, demanding instructions. And because that crushing, suffocating pressure of ruining the night is completely lifted off his shoulders, his anxiety evaporates into thin air. And when his anxiety evaporates, his physical stamina naturally increases. It is the great paradox of male performance. The less he cares about lasting long, the longer he actually lasts. You are rewiring his entire relationship with sex. You are shifting him away from a goal-oriented mindset where the only objective is the main event sprint, and you are moving him into an experience-oriented mindset where the entire night is a vast playground of mutual pleasure and exploration. You have to realize your own power in this dynamic. You are not a victim of his biology or his nervous system. You are the architect of your own intimacy. When a guy finishes fast, it is a test of your sexual confidence. Are you going to shrink away, put your pajamas on, and accept a thoroughly unfulfilling night? Or are you going to step into your feminine power, grab the reins, and redirect the energy to make sure your cup is overflowing? A high-value woman knows her body is a wonderland that deserves hours of exploration, not a fast food drive through where he gets his meal and leaves. She demands what she wants with a smile, a whisper, and a completely unapologetic attitude. When you show up with that kind of magnetic, demanding, yet deeply loving energy, a man will bend over backwards to please you. He will do whatever it takes to level up his game because he realizes he is dealing with a woman who knows her worth and will not settle for the scraps of his quick release. Furthermore, we must address the absolute necessity of broadening your intimacy menu. If the only item on your menu is the main event, then your entire intimate life is entirely dependent on the stamina of his little guy. That is a terrible business model for a relationship. You need a massive menu of options. You need to cultivate sessions where the main event does not even happen at all, and that is considered a complete, successful night of intimacy. Imagine a night where you just spend an hour giving each other incredible massages using hands and mouths, completely satisfying each other without ever doing the traditional deed. When you make these alternative sessions a regular part of your intimate diet, you are subconsciously teaching him that his worth as a lover is not tied strictly to the performance of his little guy. He learns that his hands are magic, his mouth is a weapon, and his presence is entirely enough. This unhooks his ego from his refractory period. I have seen countless couples transform their entire dynamic simply by taking the main event off the table entirely for a full month. They are allowed to do everything else, but no main event. What happens? The guy's anxiety plummets to zero. He becomes infinitely more creative, infinitely more attentive, and infinitely more focused on her pleasure because he does not have to worry about managing his own timeline. And when they finally bring the main event back onto the menu, he is a completely different lover. He is relaxed, he is confident, and his stamina is magically doubled because the fear of failure has been entirely eradicated. You are dealing with a psychological puzzle, not just a physical glitch. When a man feels safe, when he feels desired, when he feels that his early finish is not an indictment of his manhood, but merely a hurdle you are playfully jumping over together, he transforms. He stops being the anxious teenage boy rushing to the finish line and starts becoming the grounded, attentive man who wants to worship you. But you have to be the one to set that tone. You cannot wait for him to figure this out on his own, because his ego will not let him see clearly. His ego will tell him to hide, to apologize, and to avoid. Your confidence, your direction, and your own apologetic pursuit of your own pleasure is the lighthouse that guides him out of his sea of shame. So stop settling for the awkward quickie and the devastating silence that follows. Stop faking it to protect a fragile ego that actually desperately needs your honest, loving direction. Start communicating with your body. Start deliberately slowing down the timeline. Start demanding round 2 as the bare minimum, and start turning those premature endings into incredibly hot new beginnings. You hold the master key to his nervous system, his ego, and his ultimate potential as a lover. Use it, own it, completely master it, and build the kind of jaw-dropping, heart-pounding, all-night intimacy that keeps both of you completely obsessed, deeply connected, and wildly satisfied with each other for years to come.